Welcome to Soberish Uprising. My name is Holly Krivo, a former heavy drinker who started a soberish journey a little over a year and a half ago, and everything has changed in her life. At Soberish Uprising, we dismantle and destigmatize and do all the things about sobriety and drinking and what that looks like in our lives and in society today. We share stories of finding freedom from alcohol on our terms so we can live our best lives. In this series, we are doing the myths of why I did not start to redefine my relationship with alcohol. Why, when I knew I should, the excuses, the myths, the stories I told myself about why I shouldn't, right? Last week we talked, or a couple weeks ago, we talked about really, I don't have a problem, which is a huge one, right? Be sure to tune in because I have not met one single person who, well, that's not true. Most people are like, well, I don't have a problem technically, right? So check that one out. The second myth, which is great, is it's what I told myself, right? It's not the right time. I did a podcast a couple weeks ago with Von Piero, who is just a phenomenal energy healer guy. I mean, she's incredible, right? And so she asked me, she said, it's going to come into spring and we're going to be at the lake and we're going to be doing things and parties. So like, what do we do? And I like had to giggle on the inside, right? Because I'm like, there's always something, right? Spring, and then it's summer and it's beautiful. And then it's fall and it's football weather. And then it's winter and it's cold. And then it's spring again. And then there's always something. And so we cannot just wait for the right time, right? And I did that for so long, right? I always would think, now is the right time. When my schedule really clears up, that'll be easier to do, right? Which is not true, because when I lead a full schedule, it's important for me to have experiences and friends and fellowship and activities. And then even if I did not have a full schedule, then I would be at home and be like, I might as well have a glass of wine. So the stories we tell ourselves. So I'm going to cover kind of the three pieces around this myth that are really interesting and kind of helped me, gain clarity and really move through this so that I could redefine and change my relationship with booze. So the first one is it's never the right time and it's always the right time. It is, there's always going to be a wedding. There's always going to be trips. There's always going to be a happy hour. There's always a Tuesday. There's always something. So it's never going to be the right time. You're never going to feel completely ready, right? So if you continue to wait for time, it just never comes, right? It'll just never, we want to say it will, but it really doesn't. And, that's okay. Like, it's okay that it's not going to feel right. Like, you're not going to be ready, but unless I cut out all relationship activities, anything I want to do, and again, then I would just be home probably drinking. It's not something that's going to happen, right? So I did that for a long time, thinking when the right time comes, I'll be able to do that, right? When I'm not tempted, when I'm not in situations, right? But you really have to start thinking through and creating those situations. And it's not the right time. Number two, this is not just for drinking. This is for so many areas of our life, right? Like, I'll get my finances in control after the holidays. I'll get my health done after we go on this trip because I really want to eat guac and chips and have Marge, right? Like, we do it. I'll put the focus on my relationship, after I get this big project at work done. We do it so many times. Like, waiting for the right time, it's never going to feel totally like the right time, right? And it's really just a way to keep us safe. And when we talk about that, especially with booze, we're like, yeah, but booze doesn't really keep us safe, but it does, right? Because we're used to it and it's part of our social circle. It's part of our fabric. It's part of, like, we want to be a part of the norm, right? That's like literally back to the caveman days. Like, you don't want to be left out of the tribe or you'll die. So it's normal that we maybe don't want to make a change. So we use this excuse of it's not the right time. And here's the thing, we can really believe that, right? We can really negotiate with ourselves and say, okay, I'll just wait till this and then I'll do it. And then you're like, oh crap, that party came up. Okay, I'll just wait till that. Like, and we believe it, right? We are like, after this is done, I'm going to do it, right? So it's totally normal. And time is the biggest excuse for most things, right? Like, time, not having the time is why we put off most things in our life, or not the right, either not having the time or not having the right time. So we're super particular on this timing. I'm in a lot of groups and with amazing women doing huge things in the world, right? And I would guess every single one didn't feel like they were ready to make the change when they did, right? They didn't think it was the right time. If they just had a little bit more preparation, they would do it. So I just want to normalize that if you're somebody who keeps on putting up for the time, one, it's totally normal. It goes back to like keeping us safe, caveman days, right? But also coming back to like it's always the right time. You're never going to feel completely ready. Like you just have to like trust that inner knowing, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, to do that. And then choose to make those first like really benchmarks, right? When you're starting out, it's not the right time. It is so interesting. There are so many of my first when I started this sober journey, and I was really particular on when I would have drinks. Um, some of my first are so clear, like my first wedding, my first holiday, like my first going to a birthday party, like if my first going to watch football. That's like so. I mean, those days are so vivid to me. Um, but knowing those are always going to come up, right? But just honoring those, having those as benchmarks, trying something different, right? And those times were different, and there were times that I went through those and said, okay, this is the time for me to have a drink, right? This is an intentional act. I get to decide. I get to decide what that looks like. I get to decide if I have one glass of wine for a birthday and then have sparkling water in that decision, right? But choosing the times, honoring the first, and just starting because it's your schedule's never going to clear up. If it clears up, you're going to fill it with other things. So I just wanted to share that the myth of now's not the right time. Now's not the right time, and it's the best time. I, for years, would put off thinking, okay, I'm going to have a time in my life where it just feels really clean and crisp, and I'm not tempted, and it never came, right? It just never came. So pick that date, experiment with it, pick a time frame. I'm a huge believer people need, a good 70 to 90 days of complete sobriety to understand the magnitude of it. But maybe you're trying out, maybe pick like 2 or 3 weeks and maybe there is an activity that you're going to have during that time, right? Those like honoring those benchmarks and say, I do have this birthday party coming up and I'm going to be a powerful, empowered human being and decide not to drink at that time. And I'm going to take my sparkling water. I'm going to take my mocktail. I'm going to take my CBD drink. I'm going to take my cookies, my cake, my candy. I don't care what it is. It's not booze. But making that decision and then have that first and be like, oh, if I can go to a party or a wedding and not drink, what else can I do? Right? Like, because once we start to get through those first and we create that time, they all seem a little less scary, right? Like I've been through a lot of my first that I feel like I can go to most things and feel pretty confident about what I'm doing. But if I would have waited for the right time, I never would have done that. So again, that's my myth to the story I told myself that stopped me from drinking or stopped me from redefining my relationship with alcohol. So I want to encourage you, like, is this something you've told yourself? And you can sit there and you could probably rationalize all day and you could argue all day about the right time. And if you're really honest with yourself, you know that that's just an excuse. You know that you can create the time. We create the time and the experiences and the things that we want. We do that. We find a way, especially as a powerful human like yourself, right? So just on yourself, is this an excuse? And then also, where else are you doing this in your life? Where else are you letting this excuse of not the right time get in the way? Again, earlier I shared about all these powerhouse women I know who are doing magical work in the world to make this place a better place to live for all of us. And they probably never think it's the right time, right? So what else are you holding yourself back from? Is it joining the gym because it's not the right time? Is it having a difficult conversation? Is it health? Is it wealth? Like what is that? Because one thing we talk about coaching is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So that's my myth number 2 on it's not the right time. And next week, or next time we come on this topic after I have my guest, one that's really important is like the myth that I thought my sobriety had to look a certain way, that I thought it had to look a certain way, be a certain way for it to be effective. And again, that's another one. All of these myths, I want to say, that's my favorite. That's not my favorite. That's the one, but they're also so intertwined. So thank you for tuning in. Would love to hear from you. Leave a comment. You can always email me or DM me. I'm on Instagram, Holly Krivo, HOLLYKRIVO, or you can email me at holly@hollykrivo.com. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, everything you want is on the other side of saying no to that drink.